Welcome to my 20th Pilates Mo talk, which is now my second round with Carol Robbins. And my Pilates Mo talks are with people who I like very much and who share their insights and ideas. For example, Carol's alignment rescue is so wonderful that I visit her 3 times a week online. What do you teach me there? Why do I love it so much? What do you think?
Well, two of the classes are called exploration classes, and they are, so let me start with the other one. The one in the middle is a foundations class. So that's your basic restorative exercise foundations, where we go through more basic assessments but you can't just kind of dryly go through, let's assess this muscle in this joint. So we put a flow together. It's kind of fun.
It is.
And we usually have a theme. So the theme, what was the theme last week? Do you remember? Today we did quads.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Yeah.
Knee extension. That was
Yeah.
super.
And then the other 2 days, we will do more exploratory work within the same theme. So it can take us anywhere.
Yeah.
So you're always thinking, it's not a difficult in the sense that it's really hard, like holding a plank for a minute or doing a bunch of lunges or something. It's more an awareness, somatic kind of practice where we're thinking a little bit about how you move and looking for ways that, we might have a very good way of moving. We might have what I call a strategy for a certain task. So if it's bending over, maybe you have a certain strategy that you bend over. And, if you're experiencing any pain in your lower back, let's say, because that's so common, then somebody might say, oh, well, you're bending over wrong. And you shouldn't bend over like that. You should bend over like this. And that's the cause, that's the causation of your painful experience. But there's really no right and wrong way to move. There's just like a variety of ways to move. So we look at those, we look at increasing the variability of your body. So we're always working at skills, being able to have daily life skills where you have an option or a range of motion that you can choose from, depending on the context, right? Context is everything. So the other thing that we bring into it is like trying to change the context. So if we're always working in a certain way with certain equipment or in a certain studio or on a flat and level surface, then, you're never going to get, the environment itself can also change your variability or challenge your variability. So although we're kind of committed, I'm restricted in the sense that I'm teaching in a studio to a camera, but the suggestion is always that you should take this further afield.
Outside. Yeah, right. And what my people have trouble with not lately, but especially now, because I'm having a foot workshop on Saturday and I'm mentioning the parallel feet, and they have really trouble because they say it makes their knees turn in. It makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So they walk in turnout, we say.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So it's really common if you go somewhere where you can see people walking and just, sit and observe for a few minutes, you'll notice that everybody has a slight degree of toe out. And some people have more than others. And some people have one that toes out more than another. So there's a lot of asymmetry there. But there seems to be this commonality of this toe out. So if your foot is facing straight ahead, then the joint where your foot meets your leg, that we call the ankle joint, talocrural joint is what it's called anatomically. When your foot is facing straight ahead, your ankle is at 0 degrees, right? So anytime you turn your foot out, you're also dragging the lower leg bones with you.
Right.
So you start to change the relationship of the foot to the tibia, which is a lower leg bone, and you change the relationship of your tibia to your femur, which is the thigh bone. So and again, these things are normal in certain contexts. So if you bend your knee
Yes.
and you have your foot can change its orientation.
Yes.
So my thigh isn't moving side to side, but my foot is moving like a
Mm-hmm.
windshield wiper. So my foot can orient itself in a position relative to the thigh bone if the knee is bent. So let's say you're
Mm-hmm.
climbing a
Mm-hmm.
hill
Yeah.
and you're not going upstairs, you're actually going
Yeah.
up a hill. Then your foot can't always be straight because you might not have that much dorsiflexion in your ankle, or you might be encountering bumps or lumps or rocks in
Mm-hmm.
the hill
Mm-hmm.
that you have to move your foot around. So your foot can accommodate the range
Right.
of motion of your joints or the surface it's on by rotating with the
Yeah.
lower leg bone relative to the femur. So that means your hips can face, in the direction that you're moving. They can push you
Yeah.
forward as your feet change their orientation. But when we always walk with that foot turnout, especially with the knee straight, the only way if I have my knee straight to move
Mm-hmm.
my to move my foot is to move the whole leg.
Yeah.
So now my
Right.
thigh is moving with my lower leg and my foot. So most people are walking with some degree of knee flexion. So that means that rotation of the foot and shin are changing relative to
Mm-hmm.
the femur and the hip. And the reason they're doing that is most of like there's a variety of reasons, but some of the more common ones, because if everybody in our culture is doing something similar, you have to kind of look at, well, what are we all doing that's similar that could be the culprit?
Yeah.
So one of the main things is positive heeled shoes. So
Mm-hmm.
that means it's not high heels. It just means any difference between the ball of the foot, the heel rather, and the ball of the foot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So 0 being, no degrees of change, and anything above 0 is called positive mathematically, right? Anything below is
Mm-hmm.
negative. So a positive heel just means that your heel is higher than the ball of the foot. It could be half an inch, quarter inch, 3 inches, whatever. So most conventional shoes have a positive heel. So even if you're not buying high heels, if you're going into the store to buy running shoes or court shoes or loafers or whatever, there's going to be a positive heel.
Right.
And that means that your ankle is always in a little bit of plantar flexion. You're not at
Yeah.
that 90-degree angle between your foot and your leg anymore. So your leg is here and your foot is kind of down here where your heel is higher than the ball of the foot. It
Mm-hmm.
puts your toes puts more pressure on the ball of your foot because your toes have to do this to get to the
Mm-hmm.
floor. And so the whole shape of your foot is changing, but it's also shifting your weight forward because your heel is elevated, shifts your center of mass over the ball of the foot, and puts all this pressure on the knuckles of your foot, which are called
Right.
metatarsal heads.
And
Okay.
people
And
are
then,
told this is good for their low back pain. People are given shoes with a little of this positive heel to release their low
huh.
backs. How is
Oh,
that
well,
possible?
yeah. I have there's a reason for that. Again, there could be a different thing for different people, but I'll give you an idea of why that could be,
Mm-hmm.
be in a minute. So when your foot is in this plantar flex position, where the heel is higher, you have to actually work a little harder when you're bringing your leg through and you're walking to clear your heel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much easier just to kind of turn the foot out, and then
Ah,
you don't
yeah.
have to like actually pick up your whole foot. You can just swing your leg to the outside. So that's one reason. Um, the other reason is the shape of the shoe. It prevents, sometimes they'll have an arch that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
supports your medial arch. And so your foot isn't pronating. So that's a natural movement where the medial arch of your foot gets longer and lower and closer to the floor, and the whole foot lengthens. And the joints on the bottom of the foot become more open so they can adapt
Mm-hmm.
to the surface. So when you're weight bearing on your foot's in a position of adaptability to the
Yes.
surface it's on. And then the opposite of that is supination, when the joints close and they kind of shorten the foot, and that's more of a rigid lever that's better for creating force against the ground, so
Mm-hmm.
pushing
Mm-hmm.
yourself forward. So that pronation thing, if it's restricted, then the only way you're going to get that movement through the foot is to turn out, so that you're now
Mm-hmm.
using something called eversion. So
Mm-hmm.
now, instead of kind of going through the whole center of the foot and finding that length of the whole foot, you're just turning your foot out and then tilting it.
Right.
And then most people will find that they have like a lot of wear on the outside edge of the heel and on the inside edge of the foot because of that turnout
mhm.
position.
Yeah.
So, you know, we come along and as restorative people and we say like, hold on, you're
Mhm,
walking with foot turnout and that can't be good for you. Like maybe you have flat feet or
mhm, mhm.
bunions or all kinds of things that could occur from those loads, those changes to the loads of the feet. Or you could have knee pain, or you could have hip pain, or, you know,
Yeah,
maybe you don't have any of that, but you lack variability. You lack the ability to change your foot
yeah,
position. You can only walk a certain way. So if you think of that as a problem, which again, it wouldn't be a problem if you're only ever walking on the same surfaces. But if you
mhm,
suddenly go, let's go camping or let's go hiking, you know, and I'm going to go somewhere for a holiday that requires a lot of walking.
mhm,
And then suddenly your feet are, you know, that you don't have that variability, then your feet have to, they have to work harder in one plate, in one position,
mhm, mhm,
which
mhm.
then can be kind of fatiguing, exhausting, or even, you know, leading to pain and injury.
Yeah, yeah,
So we want people to have the variability to have a different foot position. So we go, all right, let's bring your feet straight.
yeah.
But they don't really have the ankle ability. Ankle is lacking the ability to be in that position because it's adapted
To
to the
this
toe out
way, yeah.
position. So all of your muscles and bones have adapted to that position. So you can't just suddenly go, let's, you know, I'm
Yeah.
waving a magic wand over you and you got to walk with your feet straight from now on, because
No.
that just won't work. That could then become a problem. And then people blame that because they didn't have
Yeah,
a problem before.
right.
So it's like, okay, well, we've got to change it, but we have to change it gradually according to, you know, the loads. And then the corrective exercises, which is what we do in classes, assesses your ability to change your position and finds those restricted places so that we
Yeah.
can start working on them.
And that's
So
what
we
we
look,
do.
yeah, we work on the foot and we work on the calf and we work on the ankle and we work on the knee and the hip and everything
Hmm,
to
hmm.
try and find that ability to have a different relationship between the
Yeah,
foot, the shank, and the femur.
right, right. And lately we have been working in split stance. So one
Yeah,
foot forward and the other back,
right.
and bending knees and hips and straightening them. And I found this, I don't know, have we been doing this for 1 or 2 months now?
Oh, much longer than that. I was trying to
Longer.
remember today.
Was it half a
I
year?
think it's a year. I think we've been
It
doing
is a
that
year.
almost a
I
year.
Yeah, and I must tell you, my balance has got so much better. It's
Good.
amazing. For
Yeah,
the outside of the hips, for my glutes, it's great.
yeah. So, we'll talk about the split stance in a minute, but let me go back to your question about the lower
Yeah,
back. So,
yeah.
when it's interesting, you say people are often given heels to make their lower back feel better.
Hmm,
But what happens when you put a heel on is, again, you can see different, like people are going to deal with the heel different ways.
hmm,
But a really common way to have an elevated heel is to bend the knee a little bit, which
hmm.
also bends the hip a little bit because you can't bend your
Right.
knee without your hip. And then the tailbone kind of, the whole pelvis rotates down in the back. So, and it, you know, sometimes there's an abdominal contraction as you pull the top
Hmm,
and front of the pelvis up. So you see somebody standing in heels and they kind of stack their segments over each other, but they have to flex their hip and their knee to do that
hmm,
because they're in a
hmm,
plantar flexed ankle. And the lower back is lengthened in that thing. So that's
hmm.
usually what happens. But so it could be because they're trying to get them to lengthen their
Yeah,
lower
right.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the problem is compression.
Hmm, hmm. Mostly,
So
that's it. Yeah.
the that's kind of a lazy way to fix somebody with lumbar spine compression, if that's the
Hmm,
issue.
hmm, hmm.
The main thing for me would be to drop the ribs down because that would lengthen the top of the lumbar spine, and to back the hips up
Hmm.
because that would lengthen the bottom of the lumbar spine. So
Yeah.
you can have a foot that's level, the heel and the ball of the foot are level, and have a lumbar spine that's not compressed. What
Right.
most people are doing is shifting their pelvis forward in space, called an
Yeah.
anterior shift.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that puts a lot of strain or compression, which compression is pressing
Yeah.
together of the lumbar discs.
Hmm,
All
hmm.
right. So they might be going, oh, well, you have a compressed lumbar spine. In our experience, people that wear heels tend to find the length in their lumbar spine again. So that must be what you need.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's again, it might be a good strategy short term. So if somebody has
not for the
acute
future.
pain or something, it's like, all right, we need to get you moving again. So let's give you this because this will take care of you for, in this acute stage so that you can walk from here to there and you can function and you can get up and go to the bathroom or whatever it is they need to do. But it's not the long-term strategy that's going to fix their problem. So it's just a Band-Aid solution.
Yeah. And what the split stance thing is also about heel down and heel up.
Yeah. So when we do a split stance, we have one foot forward, one back. So it's just like taking a snapshot of a gait, like if you're taking a step walking. But when you're walking, of course, both feet aren't going to be flat on the floor at the same time, not unless you're sliding your feet.
Yeah.
So when you have both feet on the floor at the same time, we're doing it deliberately so we can use traction against the skin. So when we start shifting our weight forward and back, it moves our pelvis and that moves our femur and that moves our lower leg and that moves our ankle and our foot. So we're kind of doing it from the top down in that sense, or we're doing it proximal to distal. So when we do a shift, when our feet are stuck to the floor, so to speak, and we're shifting our pelvis forward and back over them, one hip has to externally rotate as the other internally rotates. One foot has to pronate as the other supinates. You're flexing one hip, extending the other, you're flexing one knee, extending the other. So all of the things that are relevant to gait are being taken care of in this very effective, easy, simple kind of, it's an elegant kind of solution to get to take care of a lot of things at the same time.
And afterwards,
it's not easy though.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But afterwards you walk around in a much looser and elegant way because the parts have been moved before.
Yeah, it's really great, and we can layer on things. So it can start very basic. Are your feet moving when you shift your weight over them or not? Is your shank rotating when you bend your knee or not? And are these, because if they're not doing those things, then the onus travels further up the chain towards the hip to do the work.
Right.
So for example, if you're not pronating well in your foot or internally rotating your shin when you bend your knee, you might get a hip that adducts, that the whole leg kind of falls in, so that you're trying to get the foot to the ground by moving your leg and in at the hip.
Right.
There's something, okay, I think we're okay. Got a cat counter surfing and eating stuff on the counter. I can hear somebody eating over there. What's going on? So
this is also strengthening the leg or the hip that you are standing on, because the front leg you always have your pressure on, and the back leg, in the end, we lift it then. And so we could do one-legged squats, which make the work even more obvious.
Right. So then we can progress it from that basic way of just learning how those relationships affect you to more weight-bearing, either isometric exercises where we're just holding a position and seeing if we can load the muscle that way, or a dynamic movement where we're coming into and out of position so that we're lengthening and shortening a muscle.
Yeah.
And we're using strength and weight-bearing and balance and all of those things. So again, they all pertain to our ability to walk.
Right.
But in this really effective way that we can get a lot of information.
Yeah. And it's for any age and any condition you're
counter
in.
surfer.
Ah, yeah, right.
What are you doing over there?
Eating everything that she found.
I sent my daughter to work with lunch. I think she was eating tossed a salad. I think she was eating the salad dressing.
Just a short question. In the end, it is walking and squatting that we do, but I know that you sleep in a special way. You told us that you got rid of your mattress and bed where you only have to squat down a little bit. You are lying on the floor. Tell us about that.
the bed that I had before I went to floor sleeping was a really high bed. Like and I'm tall, like I'm over 6 feet tall. So I would just kind of sidle up to it and then just like sit down.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I didn't really have to do much to get in and out of bed. Like, and getting out of bed, you just kind of sit up and swing your legs over and put them on the floor, and then you're practically standing. So, and again, that's fine. It's not like right or wrong. It's just, if you're looking for opportunities to do more strength to weight ratio work, or to bend your joints in, a variety of ways, in a way that you don't have to really think about too hard. It's like, okay, well, if you're sitting on like I'm sitting on the floor right now.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
sitting on the floor, then you have to get up and down from the floor. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people only experience that when they go to a class, like if they do a
Right.
class, a yoga class
Yeah.
or something. And even a Pilates studio, unless you're doing mat work, sometimes you do mat work right on the bed of the
Yeah.
Cadillac. So people aren't
Yeah,
really getting
right.
to the floor.
Yeah.
So if they take a class where they get on the ground, that might be once a week or something like that, where they actually
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
have to get down to the floor and back up. But I've built that into my day where, I work on the floor. I get up, I don't have a lot of furniture like outside, for example. So I sit on the deck on the floor
Yeah, yeah.
when I'm out in my yard, and then I sleep on the floor, because then the last thing you do at the end of your day is bend all your joints and lie down. And then the first thing you
Yeah.
do every morning is gather all your joints under you and push yourself
And
up
yeah,
fully.
yeah, yeah.
And that doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound like a huge thing if you're only doing it once a day. But that's what fixed my plantar fasciitis.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I had really minor, mind you, it was really minor. It was just kind of like starting. And I thought, oh, I know what this is. This is not good. And I was starting to have this pain in my feet in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
bad in the morning, get better throughout the day. And then every morning it would be the same. And I really didn't do this in order to fix my plantar fascia. I just did it because I was experimenting and I wanted
Yeah.
to see if I could sleep on the floor. And the first week didn't go so well. I was waking up a lot. I was uncomfortable.
Mm.
And but then I adjusted really quickly, and
Okay.
I started preferring the feeling. Like now when I lie down on a hard surface, it feels really good to me. It feels like getting a massage. And
Ah,
lying down on a soft surface feels very
strange.
uncomfortable.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's just like putting positive heels on now. It's like, this feels odd now. And
Mm-hmm.
my body craves what it needs.
Yeah.
So it's really just listening to my needs. So when I get up, and like when you get up from the floor, you're loading your plantar fascia with your knees bent and your ankles dorsiflexed. So you're putting that stretch on them right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just swinging your legs over a high bed and putting your feet on the ground, you're not preparing them for your body weight.
Right.
So you've
That's
got the
missing.
shortened plantar fascia from the night, and then you're just like loading it really fast with all
Yeah.
your body
Yeah.
weight. So that's
Mm.
what that initial morning pain was all about.
Oh.
So
And
that
so it's
after a couple of
it
weeks,
was a
that went
side.
away. I never felt it again. And it was only a few months later that I
Oh,
went, hey,
wow.
like I've never, I could feel that was becoming a problem, no longer exists. My lower back, my shoulders, that was
Mm-hmm.
the most surprising thing for me, because I had a frozen shoulder and a rotator cuff,
Yeah.
probably impingement kind of symptoms that people are told like are
Yeah.
classic impingement, which may or may not really exist. But anyways, um, it was a problem where I had a lot of pain in my shoulders and a lot of inability to do things like
Yeah.
raise my arms and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, over probably a few decades of these issues, I was getting softer and softer mattresses, buying mattresses
Mm-hmm.
with the big topper and everything. So you'd sink into it and there would be no pressure on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't getting better. And I saw everybody. I saw everybody. I saw, an osteopath and a chiropractor and a physio and a massage therapist. And I had everything that people offer for my
Mm-hmm.
shoulders,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
needles and everything. And I started sleeping on the floor, which I thought would be horrific for my shoulders.
Excruciating.
And they're better. They're better.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you sleep on your back or on your
I'm
side?
a side sleeper.
Oh, amazing. Where does the shoulder go then?
I, you know, I, I don't know. It must go forward. But
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
thing about sleeping on the floor is, now I should be, let me be a little bit more detailed, because I'm not literally sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, there's some bedding.
Yeah, I have a mat it's a Japanese mat called a tatami mat, and it's about this thick.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. If you walk on it, your body weight sinks because it's like
Yeah.
dried grass. But it's not soft like a mattress. It's still pretty hard. It's what they use
Mm-hmm.
in Japan, like in not in modern day Japan, but in the traditional
Mm-hmm.
houses that would have been their flooring.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's a futon. It's also a Japanese futon. So it's like a
Yes.
silk futon with wool inside.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
pretty packed. It's not a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
thick at all. But it's really nice. And so that's what I'm sleeping on. But because there's a lot of pressure that I didn't have before, I get uncomfortable and then you flip to the other side.
Yeah, you move positions.
Yeah. And I never did that. Like when I slept in a mattress, I would wake up on the same position I went to sleep
Mm-hmm.
in.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, on my left side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now I sleep equally on right and left. And that's why I had problems at first because I would wake up when I got uncomfortable and then you'd have to like fall asleep again. But
Yeah,
now I'm pretty sure I just move in my sleep. I don't really
perfect.
think about it.
Oh, that's
So
good.
yeah, I mean, there's probably levels of consciousness where I don't, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
fully asleep, but you're kind of like, okay, now I can go back to that deeper sleep. So I'm not putting all the pressure on one body part all
Yeah,
the time.
right, right.
And then, you've got circulation that can heal tissues that are,
Good,
yeah.
good. Oh, that's so great. Like sitting on the floor and not sitting on the soft sofa.
And
So
yeah,
you,
exactly. And a lot of people find like excuses to not do that, like, oh, I can't do that because my floor is cold, or, I sleep with my husband and he won't try it, or
mhm,
whatever.
mhm, mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
find a solution that works for you. Maybe it's a lower platform bed and a less thicker mattress. Like you can
yeah, yeah,
transition in
yeah,
steps the way you
slowly.
would
Yeah,
transition to minimal
yeah.
shoes, if
Good,
you care to
good.
do that.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Carol. That was very interesting. And I'm
It's
sure
such a
people,
simple, I mean, it really is
it
such a
is
simple thing.
simple.
It doesn't cost any more money than like changing your bed
Yeah,
just that one time. It's a lot cheaper than buying an expensive mattress.
right. And
Like a
it's
good
not
futon is like
exercise.
$200-300, whereas a good
Wow.
mattress is 2,000-3,000.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
And a
uh-huh.
bed, of course, very expensive. So
Yeah, yeah,
if you're into that minimal look, then it's even
yeah.
nicer. But yeah, people will try everything before they do something like that. And it really is like that's changing your lifestyle, is building stuff into your day that your body requires without
Hmm. Hmm.
thinking about it. Like you don't have to
That's
go
it.
anywhere and make an appointment and pay
Yeah,
money and sit there and have somebody do
yeah.
something to you, right?
Good. Very good point. Thank you very much, Carol. That was
Welcome.
great.